Hey, good morning, good afternoon, depending where you are. Welcome to our digital job site. I'm Jeff Lizerbaum. I'm a pre-sales solutions architect here at Managed Solution, and I'm going to be your foreman for today's build, so to speak. We're talking about Copilot Studio. We're going to be creating some custom AI agents, and in this case, we're actually going to be using HR and recruiting as use cases for building our Copilot agents. And hopefully the result of this is that we're going to have smoother, faster, less repetitive ways of doing things at work. And so with that said, I'm really excited to have with me today Amanda, our HR director, and Kat, who is our recruiter. And Amanda, if you could start, if you can make a quick introduction.
Sure. I'm Amanda. I'm Managed Solutions Director of People and Culture. I've been with Managed Solution for 10 years this week. And my focus here is really employee experience, employee engagement, basically making sure our team members and leaders have what they need to be successful for their own careers and for our customers' needs. So glad to be here. And if it means spending less time answering the same PTO question 50 times, I'm all about it.
Awesome. How about you, Kat? Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, hi everyone. I'm Kat Grunzinger. I am the talent advisor here at Managed Solution. Been here for 4 years. I focus on everything talent and candidate engagement, making sure we bring the best talent on to our organization at Managed Solution. And this Copilot Studio, if that means, playing less Tetris with calendars, please sign me up. I'm all about it.
Absolutely. I think we're going to be able to get there and hopefully have a little fun with it, just like Tetris is. Before we dive deeper into the topics with Kat and Amanda, I wanted to demystify the differences between Microsoft 365 Copilot and Microsoft Copilot Studio. These are two different things within the Copilot family. Up until this point, our webinars have really been focused on Microsoft 365 Copilot, which is the per user license. It's an end user productivity AI. On the other hand, Microsoft Copilot Studio is an AI platform. It's used to build chatbots and agents, and the licensing is different. It's a per tenant capacity-based license. It means that you buy the license for the tenant, and the users who utilize it, they don't necessarily have to have the full Microsoft Copilot license, but instead they're using Copilot credits as they're prompting and getting output from the agents. Now, the main difference too is that Copilot Studio, it has several more potential areas of connecting with external sources. So it connects the knowledge sources not just within the Microsoft Graph, but it extends to hundreds, if not thousands, of APIs to other applications and databases. So as you can imagine, Copilot Studio has many use cases that spans across customer service, sales, finance, marketing, HR. And you can literally go from manual fragmented processes, which of course many of us are doing today. And yes, we live with that. However, Copilot Studio can transform those into AI automation with relative ease. So we're going to go through some of the demonstrations on how to get there. Well, thanks, Amanda and Kat, for joining us today. And what we're going to be building today is a blueprint. And Copilot Studio is going to provide that blueprint where we can build custom agents that answer questions and even automate tasks. And using your own internal knowledge sources within your organization, you can really kind of think of this as a tool that fits whatever workflow that you need really perfectly. So I'll start with Amanda, and I'm going to ask, what's at the top of your wish list if you had something like this?
Oh man, honestly, probably PTO requests and policy questions. As I'm sure a lot of colleagues in HR can relate, I have people asking me the same questions all the time. How do I request time off? What's the holiday schedule? Those types of things that come up, and are important and are repetitive. So if a bot could handle that, I'd have time for more strategic work or other things.
Amanda, that's a great example. So Here's how we would build something like that. Perhaps internally we have HR handbooks, PTO forms. We even might have postings of what the, current year holiday calendar is. And so in Copilot Studio, we're going to be creating an agent that connects to these resources, and then we can define topics, like time off, payroll, and we can make them very much modular so that the prompts are there. The users can kind of click on them or just ask, very human-like questions and really get friendly human-like responses back. Let me turn to Kat now. Now, Kat, in your life, what would make things easier for you?
I think what would make life easier is calendar scheduling, and then screening candidates. I feel like I ask the same questions over and over again. So how could we build a bot to do that?
This is a special power tool that we can link calendars. So, the bot actually can help look at people's calendars across the organization to find times, like if you need to meet with the sales director or the VP or the VCIO, it will automatically show you times available between you and that person.
Very cool. So that's calendars, but what about screening candidates? How does that work?
Yeah, so for that, there are ways that we can map out questions. So I'd map out questions, what you may want asked. We can even set to flag candidates, to meet certain criteria. So what any follow-up thoughts on how that might apply?
Yeah, one thing that it makes me think of is just the fact that, especially in a company like ours, where we really emphasize not just the technology, right, but the people behind it and the people that we're helping to empower with the technology. And, again, it doesn't sound to me like, the agent here is going to necessarily replace people, but really to get to the point faster in terms of getting people connected to have better conversations in a more timely fashion. And, again, freeing up HR leaders or other folks to do the more strategic work, to have the better, more creative conversations versus just the same routine stuff over and over. So I like that perspective too.
Why don't we put that perspective in motion by showing you a simple but effective way of building a chatbot in Copilot Studio for HR purposes. In this example, I have a chatbot. His name is HenryBot. His identity is actually called Hard Hat Henry that you'll see. And HenryBot is really there. He's built in Copilot Studio to answer questions. Now, some of the building blocks that we have from HenryBot are a SharePoint library. Within the SharePoint library, there are just a ton of documents of all different subject matters relating to people, culture, HR, policies, and procedures. And this is going to be the knowledge base that Hard Hat Henry is going to use. So probably in your case, you might have a large set of information. The other building block is me. I'm Job Site Jeff. I'm actually going to be the one who is asking questions simply via email. Now, I'm going to go ahead. I'll email Hard Hat Henry the first question. What holidays are observed for our company? When I send it, I'm going to get a response from Hard Hat Henry, who in the back end is an agent built on Copilot Studio. And he's providing answers in actually pretty clear ways of, showing tables of the holidays that we have. So he was built knowing of how to provide the output. Sometimes Hard Hat Henry has a tough time finding information because he does not have it in the database, such as what are the ingredients to make a really good eggnog this season? Well, the answer, he's going to try his best, but he's really going to say, you know what, unfortunately, that information does not provide a specific recipe. He does give ways or maybe some other ways of asking it, but since it's not in his knowledge base, he's not going to be able to provide those answers. Now, another example, and I'm sure all of you are well aware of the Coldplay concert. There might be some confidential information that an employee needs to ask and wants to make sure if things are okay or if there's certain policies for certain situations, such as having romantic relationships. Hard Hat Henry has the answer based on HR policies. He does add a little bit of humor, in terms of, hey, it's like trying to build a skyscraper with a foundation made of marshmallows. And so he was actually programmed to respond with a little humor, if appropriate. What's nice is that it provides links, citations to HR policies where needed. And that's really the building ingredients of doing the agent. And that's what you see from a user perspective. One thing to keep in mind is that these agents are protected. They're protected from threats, from policies, from content. Now, to get started to build an agent, let's go ahead and do that. We're going to click New Agent. We're going to hit that Describe portion. And if you wanted to build a Copilot Studio agent just by telling it what to do, how to do it, what type of information to look for, just using regular language, you can go ahead and do it just in the Describe button. Now, we're doing that right here for starters. We're giving the agent a name. We're giving it the beginnings of describing what it should do. But we also have access to the configuration side of things. The configuration side of things contain the other building blocks in order to build up that agent. And so we're going to do that a little bit more in detail here by creating it and then going into further depth. Here, we can actually choose the model. What type of generative AI model do we want to use, and how do we want it to orchestrate the responses? We have a lot of selections here. GPT-4o is the current model, but you can choose some other models that are appropriate. If your admin enables Claude to be another model, you can certainly introduce other AI models into Copilot Studio. In the instruction section, you can tell the agent of exactly what type of knowledge that you want it to use, and if there's any external areas, maybe don't use that. So you could be very specific on your knowledge sources of just using what you're going to add. Speaking of adding knowledge sources, here I am. I'm going to be adding the SharePoint knowledge sources. And when you're adding knowledge sources to Copilot agents, it doesn't have to be limited just to SharePoint, OneDrive, email, or the Microsoft 365 ecosystem. It can certainly go out way beyond to connectors and a lot of other sources as well, such as databases. So at this point, the knowledge sources are being added, and now every construction worker needs a tool to get started in order to make the agent work, right? So we're going to add the first tool here. When we select our tools, you can see that there are a lot of different options here. We have connectors. Connectors, now when you look at this, alphabetically, I'm only in the A's. You can see there are a lot of different connector products that we can connect to in order to give it the knowledge sources. In this case, what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to allow users to send an email. All right, that's the information that will go to the chatbot. Hard Hat Henry is going to be authenticated to that tool set, and we're going to add it right to the agent here. Now, let's just recap. I know I went pretty quick here. So in Copilot Studio, there's details, there's instructions, there's the knowledge that we're giving it, all of the knowledge sources, and we also have the tools. Now, one thing to note is that, speaking of knowledge sources, is that if you don't want any kind of web search or internet to be influencing any of the responses, you can go ahead and disable that. Now that we have the basic building blocks, it's time to add a trigger. What's a trigger? A trigger is something that's going to make Hard Hat Henry come alive and respond to your requests. And that trigger here in this example is when a new email arrives. So Hard Hat Henry, he's got his mailbox, he's using Copilot Studio and Outlook. And so when that new message arrives in that inbox, that's what's going to cause Hard Hat Henry to respond to the requests. Now, once we wrap things up, We can do a few more things like adding icons, doing a little more fine tuning, but now it's really time to test the agent out. So again, when you finish creating the agent, make sure it's protected. And then also we can go in and start testing right away. So in this case, I'm going in and I'm asking it about that company holiday question. In the middle, you're going to see all of the activity of what it's searching. On the left, you're going to see the Power Automate script that's happening. And on the right side, you're going to see the output. If everything looks good, we can go directly to channels and start publishing our agent. So publishing, it's pretty vast here. If you want to publish it to a web page, if you want to publish it in Teams and Copilot or SharePoint or email like we're doing, or even telephony, there's a lot of use cases of where you can publish your agents using Copilot Studio. For almost every webinar, we do touch on the subject matter of our AI bots. Are they replacing our jobs? And we're seeing it in the news every day, and there's a big fear. It's a real fear that everyone has. But our approach, and when we apply AI to help with those very repetitive tasks, it's really not to replace a human being. It's actually what I've been finding is that the more that we're using it, the more work we're getting. And it's making our jobs actually much more busy, and we need to hire more people in order to, really kind of field and, field processes and procedures and things like that. So I really think like I kind of have an opposite opinion on job replacement at this point.
Great.
Yeah, it's almost like the possibilities are endless, right? So you can just continue to build and automate because you don't know what you don't know.
Absolutely. Yeah. Maybe like Amanda, like are there any like current pain points that you experience that maybe a bot might overcome?
Yeah. So for us, specifically, we have employees in lots of different states. And so we have policies that apply very specifically to employees in different places. And so trying to ensure that our leaders understand what those policies are and which ones apply in specific circumstances. A lot of the time they're coming to me to unwind that logic, right? And try to figure out what applies in what cases and how to guide employees to the right answer. So I know that is a pain point for not just me, but for a lot of our leaders within the organization, because we want to make sure that we're giving employees accurate information and that we're doing, the right thing from a compliance perspective and being consistent in our policies. And also, if we could find some way to kind of eliminate the mental gymnastics that someone has to do to kind of figure out which page to look at of the handbook or which policies to think through in a specific use case, that type of thing, I think might apply in this circumstance.
Mm-hmm. And just a follow-up question on that. I mean, what are your common tools that you're using to respond to everyone with these common questions?
Yeah, so a lot of times I try to build templates that I can save either in an email template or just a OneNote with some, kind of common language on these types of circumstances. But then I'm, having to run over here, grab that template, copy, paste it into an email, customize it to the person that I'm talking to. Sometimes I even have to open up the handbook, think through that process myself. What state are we talking about? Is there a local city applying here? Is there something else that I needed to think about, And again, I think there's obviously an element of this where there'll be human oversight necessary, I think.
Yeah.
But at the same time, there's some of those initial questions, or at least just kind of the basic ones, or even having the bot be something that can build into the logic, I assume, to say, hey, this is above my bot pay grade, right? Let's send this over to a human to look at. I think would be ideal.
Yeah, and you're right. That could totally be fine-tuned because the bot can be able to answer knowledge sources, but then if there's knowledge sources that might instruct it to say, or if maybe the information is just not in the knowledge source, we can have it, maybe elevate or escalate, the question to the HR director. So those are things that could definitely help and maybe lighten up the
Yeah.
email Yeah.
And there's definitely certain topics where even if it's an easy answer, sometimes we as HR leaders still want to know which employees might be asking about it because it might prompt important conversations around FMLA or, different leave entitlements or accommodation needs, or, it would be helpful for those types of things still to kind of escalate to us so that we can make sure that we add that human touch in. But I think, yeah, helping people get the information that they're looking for faster and more efficiently, is always a great thing.
Perfect. Kat, I want to get your opinion too. I mean, any current challenges that are just kind of making your life like, gosh, I wish I could be working on this instead of this.
I think one thing that would enhance something that we do is like job descriptions. So the AI using our job descriptions currently to make them gender neutral, because we do want to emphasize that we are an inclusive organization. And I think that would just assist in making our department better and, our employer branding.
Absolutely. You hit the nail on the head, so to speak, in the construction world and building these Copilot agents there. Um, Thank you. I did want to ask you both real quick how Copilot can actually tap into other tools. Like I know we use certain HR platforms, maybe there's certain recruiting platforms. Copilot does have a way of connecting in, getting that knowledge source. Would that be something that would kind of help, would you say, in order to expand, some of the answers that come back?
Yeah, I think potentially, obviously as an HR leader, I always think from the perspective of, privacy of data and compliance and things like that. So I would definitely want to understand a lot more around when we connect Copilot, especially to a bot that might be giving answers to employees or giving answers to leaders. How do I make sure that they're giving the right information and the limited information I want them to give without accidentally tapping into a document or a report or something that's not meant to be shared publicly, right?
So, Kat, in the recruiting world, are there any tools that are outside of like our Microsoft 365 ecosystem that you use on a regular basis? And what if Copilot had the mechanism to be able to connect and really kind of use that as knowledge sources to help, in the recruiting world?
I would actually love to see how that would work together. We do have an HRIS system that we use. I use a third-party sourcing tool, and I also use LinkedIn. So the capabilities of connecting would be amazing. I would love to see how that would work.
Yeah. Yeah, certainly a lot there. And I know that even in our next webinar that's up and coming, we're going to be seeing a lot more of Copilot Studio and actually how it interacts with external platforms. So a lot more to come there. So hopefully that demo was, kind of a good starting point so you can kind of see how it might help with your day-to-day tasking and Q&A and things like that. So Amanda and Kat, any final thoughts?
Yeah, I like it. I think starting small, proving that it works seems like a great strategy.
Absolutely.
And I'm ready to
Kat,
start building.
you ready to start building? Well, let's do the final thing. Can we build it?
Yes, we can.
All right. So thank you both for joining and taking time out of your busy schedules. Really appreciate it. And now we're going to move on to some Q&A with the audience here. Thanks again.